Scott Hobgood with Beyond Normal Boundaries. Today we will be talking with Jason Cole Magnum. He is a transpersonal hypnotherapist. He's a practitioner of natural or correction neuro-linguistic programming. He is a Reiki master and a teacher. And Jason is passionate about serving others, and his greatest joy is observing others waking up to their own personal power. Jason, thank you very much for being here today. Or correction, let me back up a little bit. I'm sorry. Today, Jason and I will be talking about past life regressions and life between life regression. Okay, Jason, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me back, actually.
Yes, I am grateful that you did want to return, and I enjoyed our last conversation, and that really was a huge subject, and it kind of slips my mind now what we were talking about, but it was a huge...
We covered a lot. We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. And it was such a beefy subject that hopefully we can get together at another time and make an addendum to that show. Also, Jason and I are talking about past life regression and life between life regression today. We're going to be going over a little bit about what that is, and hopefully Jason will share some historical background on that. And what we are working towards is providing a live, or not a live, but actually a pre-recorded reading of what this type of therapy is about, and actually show a physical example of how it can be beneficial. But with that being said, Jason, I'm curious, what is past life regression from your perspective?
From my perspective and my experience, past life regression is through the process of hypnosis. Although meditation has been effective, it's through the process of entering an altered state, regressing to a particular former life as a human being, as the same soul but as a different human being. And it's usually for a purpose of, in therapy, for healing some unusual symptom that perhaps other courses of therapy haven't been able to address. It's also simply used to address curiosity and questions people have about their relationships, about their purpose in this life, about fears or interests in the afterlife as well.
Yeah, one of my major desires to learn about myself is what did I come here to do and be and whatnot. That's been a real difficult one for me to figure out for myself, and looks like landing on Beyond Normal Boundaries and doing this type of show and talking with people such as yourself with such knowledge and experience and wisdom in something that is not really mainstream. Now, in doing this, in your experience, have you ever had anybody be like resistant to whether it has value or whether it's true or not?
Absolutely. And there are religions. Some religions will do two things simultaneously: say that it doesn't exist and is not real, and yet they demand that nobody do it. So it's not real, but it's shouldn't be done, which is kind of catch-22. But there's resistance. People, yeah, of course, and I think it's natural because it's so.
Well, it's so new. I mean, it's something that is that people really haven't been exposed to by large multitudes. I would think that it's really something that's within the metaphysical circle of people that have been waking up and that have been doing their own process of trying to find out, who they are in representation to the all of it, and what is it that they're doing here. And they're open-minded about looking at these type of things and working with them, knowing without fear that nothing untoward is going to happen to them as a result of messing around in what certain religions
Right.
would say were taboo, or that
Right.
that, hey, don't go there. And I really think that those type of rules were put into effect to keep people from really going to where our natural states of abilities lie, and
Yes.
caused us. Now, at one level, I will talk about this as being a victim, but with the understanding, knowing that we all create our experience, and that what we bring to us is the exact and right, perfect thing for us to experience. But and I kind of forgot my train of thought there, but and hopefully we'll come back to it. But I do want to prod you in something else, and another subject that we're talking about is, what is life between life regression?
So that's another procedure or protocol with a different intended destination, I guess you could say, than past life regression. However, the two are essentially one and the same insofar as a bridge is a part of your journey to get to whatever place is on the other side. So when I'm facilitating a past life regression session with somebody, that sort of in between, that life between life state, or stage is really part of crossing and knowing where to traverse, in which lifetime to go to, because the intelligence is not coming from me. I'm not directing the person's subconscious or superconscious as far as where to go or which life, because I have as little ideas of what is going on as their conscious mind has. But that life between life state is where we do, as some people believe, our soul contracts, where we create a purpose that we want to experience in the life coming up, and where we review our lives. It's where there is reported all kinds of supernatural or metaphysical support or aid in the form of guides, a counsel, animal totems. And so it's a process that was discovered and really detailed by Dr. Michael Newton, and he wrote, his first book was Journey of Souls, and that was his in the, I believe, early 90s or late 80s, and he outlined his experience as a skeptical and traditional hypnotherapist, who just happened to uncover this sort of what he calls a spirit world. And he was in a regular session with a regular client, and at some point there was just this crossing a line, crossing a normal boundary,
All
and
right, nice plug, nice plug.
and he yeah and he found himself with a client, a patient, who was um, having an experience of something in between lives. And over time, he started to record and do research into the phenomena, and it was something that would recur for him. And he made that's what he switched over to doing exclusively. He's a regression regression specialist, and that's been his work. And so the life between life regression term or procedure is, I think of it as something that is personal or unique to Michael Newton, because of, it's his term for it, and he's developed a process for using that and interacting with that state. But it's the actual experience itself is really just a universal part of that superconscious mind. And anytime people really do venture through hypnotherapy or meditation to transcend the normal state of consciousness and the normal identification as this self in this lifetime, they cross through certain areas that they have to cross through.
Yeah, in meditation, in my experience in doing it, I found that time is kind of malleable. And
Yeah,
I've been in
absolutely.
meditation sometimes where, if I had selected a time of 30 minutes, that it seemed like sometimes it took a long time to get through it.
Yeah,
And other
yeah,
times it just seemed like it was a blink of an eye.
yeah.
And so I guess that kind of works with hypnotherapy or correction with life between life and past life regression in order to contact that. But I'm curious, and you talking about that, I was wondering what what drew you to be to be someone that wanted to serve others in this way.
Well, it started with at first I discovered, hypnosis and hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming at a
Right.
very basic level, and I had a background in spirituality and an interest and a practice as well. And I didn't really foresee the two merging as perfectly as they have over time, but I developed a year after I discovered hypnosis. I started studying exclusively transpersonal hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And what that does is it looks at how these sort of metaphysical or esoteric mystical experiences are not just novelty. They're not just fun or an interesting kind of thing, but they have immense potential for healing and for reframing our perspective of our everyday problems. Before I ever did a past life regression or even knew how to do the process, I experienced a few different experiences in my own meditation practice that started to wake me up to the fact that there was something just outside of this kind of normal realm. And some of the experiences I had were exactly parallel to actual movies about the in-between state that I've seen. um, they resonated with what was out there, and so I started to believe in it in my experience. And then I received some very guided official and formal training in how to guide people through the process. And when I saw it happening for people and unfolding for people in ways that was truly extremely rapid in its benefit, um, I didn't even question the reality of it anymore because I knew it was effective. Given a certain people, certain situations, it was just an effective place to go and an effective thing to do. I do believe it is legitimate. However, in a lot of ways, its truth doesn't matter as much as its efficacy. And
And when you say efficacy, define
it's
for me.
yeah, it's effectiveness in loosening the problem that the person has, and in giving them what they need in order to be free of what's holding them down.
And I feel like with some of the things that I've been looking at, I think you consider yourself sort of a pioneer and that you're implementing some of these tools out here together that maybe not many other people are doing.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I yeah, yeah. I've never thought of myself as with that exact word, I guess, but I do strive to mix the two kind of schools of thought of past life and life between life for for the purpose of just one cohesive experience where it's just whatever that person needs, they are guided to that by their own inner wisdom and healing power.
So basically, what you're working with them is sort of their subconscious, sort of helping them getting some blocks that are out or that they have for whatever reason for experiences that they've had from other lives that have transposed into this life,
Yeah.
and you're working with them to relieve, sort of to use the analogy of meridians and the energy system in the body, and
Yeah,
acupuncture releasing that blockage so that they're able to move forward with whatever their objective is.
that's a perfect analogy, especially with the reference to energy, because even our mental blockage is a type of energetic blockage, and and it is working with the subconscious. That's of course what hypnosis is most attributed to working with, and that's what it has made. What makes it successful, in my opinion, is its ability to bypass the conscious mind. That being said, there are three layers according to Carl Jung. There's the conscious mind, which is what we think of it as ourselves in our everyday, normal waking experience of consciousness. Then there's the subconscious realm, which is where if I'm working with somebody and it's just to deal with behaviors or habits and those sorts of things, or memories that have been forgotten and are traumatic. Then I'm dealing very much with their subconscious mind. It's sort of the natural bodily intelligence, which is deeper and wiser than our conscious mind is. Then there's the superconscious mind, which is sort of in the same idea as what has been called the collective unconscious. And this transcends even the individual subconscious mind and subconscious experience of being this person in this life, and that's an essential kind of prerequisite for the transpersonal work, um, because we are transcending the self and the ego, and that superconscious mind is really something in itself that is an amazing topic, but it's a state where there's an extreme and heightened awareness and perception. However, the person does not have the normal kind of self-consciousness that he or she may have, and is not confined to the normal, the traditional limitations of space and time. Like you were talking about, how time can seem to, well, time is malleable in these subtler realms, in subtler states or stages of being.
Uh, yes, which brings up when you were talking about that, as far as the hypnosis being an essential part of the practice that you're doing. And so, when you work with certain people, do you experience times where it's difficult to bring them under because they may have some fear that they may be directed to do something that may embarrass them or whatever? Would you?
Absolutely. That is a very, very common situation with hypnosis, because there's a lot of false information out there as far as what the hypnotic state is, or what the person who is inducing it is able to do. Um, and so I do have to address that quite often with people coming in for anything. The fear um, of being sort of asleep, or in some like an anesthetic state, like anesthesia. The truth is that it's hypnosis is defined very simply as a state of narrow focused attention, and to the exclusion of outside stimulus, and that they're not suggested or directed to focus on. And so, while I can give suggestions as to what they focus on and what the person experiences in their trance state, um, I can't give them a suggestion to do something or experience something that they don't want to experience, because there is an awareness that's present there, and is, in a sense, filtering or able to filter, if it wants to, the things that are coming in. And so that's common in regards to any sort of hypnosis that I've done. With past life regression, there's this other issue that's arisen where people will think that they have to try to make something happen, that they have to, or that the experience is going to be a certain way, and if it isn't that way, then they're either not hypnotized, or they didn't go into, or their experience in a former life wasn't legitimate or real. Um, and those are, you know,
So,
those are things that our minds will do, that kind of that doubt and skepticism,
so,
and it's perfectly natural.
so in approaching utilizing a service such as this, we shouldn't really approach it with any type of expectations as far as what we should be getting out of it. We should just kind of go with the flow and work with what shows up. Now, I'm curious, is this something that you can practice where you have to be in person, or can you do it remotely like I think we're going to do for myself?
Yeah, yeah. You can do it remotely, and I've done many sessions over Skype. I've had successful experiences myself listening to recordings by, another doctor worth mentioning. On a side note, is Brian Weiss,
Yes.
and he's definitely a pioneer, and he has some recordings, and when I was first getting into this, I had some very successful experiences of just being by myself with a voice that wasn't actually present by any means. But I've done hypnosis over Skype and FaceTime pretty regularly for the past couple years, and I've been surprised to find it just as effective as in person. And so you were able to record it, which we do plan on doing,
Right.
you and I, and to record it, and then to have something that the person can really reference for their whatever work it is that they're being guided towards.
And which puts me in a position to say, what is the process? What does it look like when you're working with somebody to start the process to work with them?
And so, yeah, the trance induction, is usually, it begins before there's that process of okay, now close your eyes, or whatever the approach is, and there are many different ways of doing that. It usually begins with what's called the pre-talk, which is where I mean, much of what we've been doing here is discussed, and what we've been talking about. It's really clearing the air of some of the misconceptions that the person may have, or questions that they have about hypnosis and about the work that they're going to be doing. It's an interview where we both get to know each other, and kind of connect, and I get an impression of what it is that they want to work on.
Hmm.
And that's the thing that I really like, is that it's not about what I, as an authority in some school of thought, believe needs to be looked at and addressed. It starts with, what does this person want? What is their outcome or desired outcome, and how can I help them to basically awaken it in themselves. And so I really love that about hypnosis. It takes some pressure off, for one thing, for me. But it also, it restores that trust in our own natural kind of wisdom for our own lives. And so after talking for maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes about this sort of thing, and sometimes longer, it goes on with an induction, which a trance induction, and that can range from about 30 minutes in length to 5 minutes in length, to, um, in some cases, with a long past life or life between life session, it could be an hour long, just in order to get into a certain state.
So when people are approaching you for this type of service, I guess they have in mind an objective that they're trying to reach as far as what they believe your service can do for them. And uh, what would be an example of something like that?
An example would be, somebody's had some dreams, or this has happened a lot, where somebody's had dreams, or has seen seen some kind of vision or image recurring, and they know that it has some significance, but they haven't been able to find any kind of meaning in it, or they've been dealing with a certain issue for a long time, and they've tried a lot of traditional therapies, and a lot of times something will just happen to direct them in the towards these topics. Like they'll be in the bookstore and they'll see the book, and it'll just that feeling of, yes, this is truth, and will reverberate and kind of and guide them to seeking somebody. I've had a lot of referrals, just from people who have had their experience, and then they'll be talking to somebody months down the line, and they'll think, you may want to see it from this perspective, and and it's been interesting because there's been everything from relationship patterns to depression to simply to wanting to know what their best former life was, quote unquote best, and what their worst one, quote unquote worst, because of course it all serves its purpose. But yeah, it's been interesting, the diversity of circumstances and how they've found their way to the therapy.
So really, the type of service that you have to provide, it's anybody that's looking to improve themselves, and they've
Yeah,
got issues that they're trying to deal with. So this is actually something that would work in all facets of self-work.
that's right. Yeah, and we were talking about an addendum to the first episode we did. That was something we briefly you briefly mentioned in tonight's episode,
Yes.
and I've been reflecting on the importance of this kind of procedure in giving people the experience of being a spirit, or a firsthand experience of spirituality, because that is religion asks people to take their word for the spiritual experience, whereas spirituality, metaphysics, encourages people to have their own and to implement that. And a lot of what we talked about in that previous episode was about how important it is these days that people have their own authentic inner transformation. It's something that they can really build upon for themselves. And it also ties in with people awakening to their purpose in a world where knowing one's purpose is actually relevant. Never before in history outside of this century have people been actually pondered, what is my purpose, because I actually can do that. I can have a radio show and interact with people. Like, it's pretty amazing opportunities that we have today. And so I think that, and with those opportunities, there are potential pitfalls as well, with just the need for some inner strength and some inner knowing. And I've found that this work can really do a lot for people who are just looking to awaken spiritually and are just looking to find meaning here in this life.
I think it's intriguing. I mean, the reason why we are here, humanity in general, is that we wanted to experience what it would be like to feel separate from our source. And
Yeah,
we've gotten to that point now where we're starting to wake up and we're transcending that particular reality that we made for ourselves. And in doing that, I mean, like when you're first waking up, everybody's kind of like, they're not all operating on all their cylinders yet. They're needing their metaphysical drink of coffee.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, so I think the reason why a lot of people like ourselves are coming out and have been for years, and it's progressively getting larger as each wave creates, as each person that wakes up is another pebble in the pond that is creating their ripple.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good for people to, such as yourself and myself and many, many others, which is the intention for Beyond Normal Boundaries to interview, to learn from myself, and for playing some part in that waking up and helping and helping us have that metaphysical drink of coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. So there's another thing that I wanted to address with being on the hypnotized part of it, and that is that you had mentioned a little bit earlier about people that wanted to find out what their most extravagant lifetime was and what their most fearful lifetime, for lack of a better way to put it. Now, in working with people and them finding out who they've been in other lives, has it been sort of the connotation around knowing your past lives is to be is to be feared, or it may, you may find out that you are this real monster, and that those that are really sensitive might feel like, hey, I can't, I can't believe I was that. And does that ever have you ever experienced something like that, where it slows people, where you have to work with people to get over not being not having fear about a past life that they, in an expression that they had?
Absolutely. And a lot of times that's part of the process, because the person will, yeah, it's whether or not it is a frightening thing to face, it's something that is part of that person's past, very distant past, and something that it is expressing itself in this life and demanding attention. And so most of the time when there is work to be done, it's something that there's some resistance around. Now that's why I think I like hypnosis as opposed to just kind of meditation, for accessing these states, because hypnosis there are many tools and ways for providing a sense of safety and distance that the person needs in order to process and to integrate whatever's going on in that former life. And so if it is
It looks like we may have lost him. Well, we've lost Jason. We're in the process now of connecting with him again. Our Skype connection was severed for whatever reason, which is something that my understanding is kind of works with Skype. But Skype connects us in such a way that we're able to bring people throughout the world together to have to be able to be a part of the show. Jason, we lost you. Are you back?
I'm back. Yeah.
Okay, great. We had some kind of disconnection there with Skype, but I'm glad that we were able to quickly reconnect. You were talking a little bit about well, now I've disconnected like Skype.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I went into the spirit world and now I'm back.
Jason, did you have any video, or?
I lost video, and then it said it was connecting.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, you were talking about, I think, the process of people getting over, experiencing parts of learning who they were, and that they were having some challenges with recognizing that. And the thing that came to mind in mentioning that, it sounds like that this can actually be ongoing work with people. And
Absolutely.
I guess that's individual, but
yeah, and there are limits to what I wouldn't impose the work on somebody. And,
right.
And a lot of times it's not that some people have come to me who have been very insistent on past life regression work, when really it was quite clear that to do so would be to overlook and to bypass very important work in this life that I myself probably would not be qualified for. Stuff that things like bypassing work with a psychiatrist or a therapist on really serious major childhood traumas. There can be a tendency to project, to omit that and to bypass it through thinking that the problem is a past life. And that's like a safety mechanism sort of thing that has happened very rarely, but is worth mentioning as something that does come up.
Well, I guess in the time that you've been doing this, that if you come across something that really falls outside the boundaries of the service that you're offering, that you have people that you can connect them with that would be more appropriate to deal with whatever issue that may be.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to kind of comment my feelings on past life regression, and I want to go back into life between life here a little bit in a moment. But to me, what's interesting and what's intriguing about past life regression is it's always been easier for my experiential life as Scott Hobgood, remembering my past, because my past, I feel like, is something that is preparing me for some future event. So if I know where I've been, it makes it easier for me to have choices and to actually make conscious choices of where I want to go. And I think a service like this is what that would provide, if you go into it with the understanding, hey, look, where you've been, and part of your services to help others find what they're, and this kind of reverts to life between life regression, and that is where I feel like, from a spiritual perspective, before we come here in physical form in a more in a less remembering state, we have an objective about what we want to accomplish when we come here. And once we leave that spiritual state, we go into a state of forgetfulness, which is the which to me is the functioning part of what this paradigm is all about, and wanting to, experiment with what it feels like to be disconnected from source, even though that's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really good observation of just how knowing where you come from can help guide where you go and empower you in making that choice.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, the thing that was coming into mind is I really interrupted you there, and it's sort of like what seems to be happening now in my observation of where we are as a race of people. Some of the earlier harbingers of metaphysical truth are now starting, and I'll speak specifically about Neil Donald Walsh, about a new book that he's got going out, or that's out now actually, and it's about looking at our various religions that we have, and the instrument that we used in order to have that separation from spirit. And now we're deciding at a spiritual level that no longer is what is no longer the game or the play that we want to experience. So talking to, we're directing now the very source of our belief systems, and everybody has been raised up with their belief systems, and the belief systems usually are of religious or of spiritual nature. And I think that's pretty intelligent, in order to experience what separation from source is all about, not knowing who you really are, not remembering who you really are, and having the veil of forgetfulness. But now that we're waking up and we're addressing that, I feel like your services will become more and more in demand, and in others and other people who have services to help empower others to remember their true power, and that their life's experience and what they desire to have is within their grasp if they just believe in themselves. And I think this is a part of, or this is a way to help empower people to believe in themselves.
Absolutely. There are two great points you made there, and people believing in themselves and also having a bigger concept of themselves to believe in as well, so they can experience those extravagant lives and the places they've been, or whatever they experience, and they can also have the experience and perspective of themselves as spirit, and not being tethered to physical reality and to the things that they've done, or the things that they've said, or the things that have been done or said to them by others. There's a lot of freedom in that, and in essentially coming to realize that immortality is not only real, but mortality is the illusion.
Right.
In all of this, and that is, it has huge implications. And something you talked about, as far as our belief systems go, we're raised with, we're literally handed our beliefs verbatim, and then we, in later teen years, go through our processes of stripping those away, and willfully, and but we're not given the belief that we can change our belief system, and that we can create for ourselves beliefs that are resourceful and that will lead to the results we want to experience. Which I think, if we're gonna start people off with a fundamental belief, it would be that belief in themselves and their ability to affect their own experience. That is, to be the effect in their own experience, rather than to let other things and people cause every little circumstance.
Yeah, the way that I look at that is that our spiritual beliefs now, the thing, our belief structures that were handed to us verbatim, in my understand, or my feeling about them is that they are entrenched in rigidity. And part of us waking up is being open about other aspects of who we are, and not being so rigid that spirituality has to be one way or the other, as our religions say that we are, because we're so much more than that. And I've always told people, when I've been talking about this type of subject, that there is not any book that exists within our paradigm that all of it can be found within the two covers.
That's right. Yeah.
And once we do get a hold of what we found to be the truth between those two covers, it changes on us. And it gets bigger.
Yeah, it's that's one of the really tedious things about waking up at this time, is the realization that truth is very relative, and one person's highest truth may not be my highest truth, and yet there's a mutual truth in that relationship.
And in having that, we can coexist and honor each other, even though of those differences.
Yes. It's that, I think that space in between, where you and I meet, is now the most important part of relating to each other as people. It's not where we're coming from so much as what's happening in between, and how we're able to interpret and to connect with, and to give space to the other person.
Yes, and I have found that to be sort of a challenge for me. I've gone through several stages, and I've felt like, hey, I'm the one that has discovered the truth out there, and that all the other people are, have not. And I think that's a mistake on my part. And
I've made it too.
Thank you.
I'm quickly humbled, and now I learn. The more I learn, the more ignorant I believe myself to be.
It hurts me to admit the same thing.
It's okay. I'm with you.
Well, I want to jump back a little bit back on life between life regression because I think that really is a sort of a strong key to past life regression, because past life regression, as we're talking about it now, even though there is no such a thing that everything is now, but life between life seems to be a pretty important aspect, because that's where you're truly looking at what your objective is in this present life. Would you agree with that?
I would. It seems to be more focused and in presenting an answer to that question. Yeah.
So to me, that would be something that I'd be really interested in, because I don't, I mean, I have intuitive feelings about certain things, but and I feel like where my strong point is that I resonate. I feel like I've resonated with metaphysical truth that seems to be more in line with the truth of the experience of my reality versus other people who are asleep, who don't remember who they really are and are still playing the part of an older paradigm. And I want to back up a little bit. That is also part of the reason why I wanted to do Beyond Normal Boundaries, and that is I feel like we can transcend the limitations that we're experiencing now and the strife that is running rampant throughout humanity. And what my desire is to play some part in, and this is really a reflection of my own created reality, that all our realities are different and they're personal and they coexist at the same time.
Yeah.
But my desire is to move beyond us hurting each other and not being enlightened beings. I know sort of, I feel what enlightened being and being in a reality that is all that exists within that realm would be like. And I kind of have a strong desire to be there already, but what I realize in saying that statement is then perhaps playing this part that I'm doing as being a radio show host and talking with you, is that opportunity would then leave me. So I just discovered that in making that statement.
Interesting. Yeah. I share your sentiment, and a big motivation behind this work is not just the individual effect. You said something very beautiful about how people cause ripples in their environment when they are transformed, and right now the time is essential for those kinds of ripples, because I don't even know if I have to call it enlightenment or in our realization of ourselves as who we are, but the madness could certainly end at a most basic fundamental level. And these sorts of experiences, it's hard to revert to some of the behaviors that are characteristic of the paradigms we're stuck in after one has been opened up in this sort of a way.
Yes, and saying what I said, I find that I'm grateful to be here now. Although I often think, man, I really wish to be beyond this. I'd like to experience a physical realm where where it's about unconditional love towards one another. And I look
Yeah.
at myself, and I've got a lot of work to do there. I still deal with some anger issues, and not recognizing the other individuals that are within my reality are just another aspect of me, or a mirror of me, and they're bringing me the challenges that I need to have in that moment. But
Mm.
you know, I'm not usually that thoughtful about it. Usually, I'm not in the moment. I'm thinking I'm in the moment, and actually, I'm still in my head.
Aren't we all most of the time anyway?
Yes.
um, well, it's an analogy that I would think of is, rather than having somebody who's read a travel guide about the Alamo describe it to me based on the research they've pulled from these books and online, I'd rather have somebody who's been or doing that for a while and who's seen the Alamo, and who's had that physical or that actual experience, because that gives a perspective that person can own and can put into their own words and can communicate effectively to me. That's how I feel about past life regression and life between life regression in regards to things like, quote, my anger issues or my relationships. It puts it all in a whole new light as not really being my anger issues, but being the effect of certain experiences in this lifetime and certain behaviors and collections of mental processes. And the relationships, I can see those as, if that's something that my regression reveals to me, I can see those as having the purpose that each has from the higher perspective than this physical realm, where it's still kind of theoretical, you know, where I'm still sort of basing it off of what I'm feeling or a hunch or from what I've read in some books. It's sufficient for most of us to have that, because it sparks the remembrance, but it's definitely very powerful to actually see or to experience these things from that perspective.
And I think I remember you saying this. I think in the meditation processes that you've done for yourself personally, I it seems like to me in a conversation that we were having in the first episode that we did, that you have actually felt like you had felt the connection of being with the all of it.
Yes, yes. There
And
there have been both the experience of being the all of it and being within the all of it. And that, I don't know if I could do more justice with words in
right,
expressing that,
I
but
understand.
it's very beautiful. Yeah.
And yeah, I know. There's just things that you experience that go outside the normal boundaries of the way that we communicate with each other now, which is through words and in written form or spoken form, and not really connecting on a telepathic level where we're all from one. I was watching this new movie that the X-Men put out, and I forget the character's name, where he can locate anybody in the world, and it was really hard for him in his youth
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be connected with everybody. He just didn't know how to be with all of it. But to me, that sort of is symbolic of what we're going to have to experience in order to connect with everybody. Because since we're all one and we're transcending to another level, it is my feeling that we should no longer have fears about things that we've done, and who we think that we really are, and being in touch in learning about who that we really are, and that we're just down here for lack of a better way to express it, playing a game, and this is not the true reality of who we are. It's just, to me, another way that I express my understanding with it is I use the holodeck on Star Trek.
Yes.
From life between life progression, really what you're doing at that stage is you're choosing the programming that you want to plug into the holodeck so that you can experience free choice within that paradigm. Would you agree with that?
These are excellent metaphors. Yes, I would. And in fact, stuff like, to give an example of the process, the holodeck is a great, that's a great theatric device to help the subconscious mind facilitate the process, because it's such a good metaphor for what really does seem to occur. Yeah.
Nice. Well, we're like 5 minutes and 26 seconds in before the end of this show, and I really think that we could go on. I really enjoy having conversations with you.
Likewise.
Well, thank you. But I'm curious, is there any parting statement that you wish to make?
There was something. There is. Yeah, I would say that for people at this stage, given what we've been talking about the importance of waking up, having any kind of willingness or openness to these sorts of ideas as potentially being a part of someone's truth, and I'm talking to the viewer now. If this is something that is interesting to you, or something that feels as though it may offer opportunity for growth, and yet seems a little too difficult to comprehend or to even try to, just a willingness is a great start. A willingness and an openness to whatever you need in order to be guided to your experience, whether it's a past life or life between life regression, or a meditative experience. We're all involved right now in this whole process, this whole game of waking up from the game.
Right.
It's we've been the universe has tagged us, and we're it, and we so it's our
Nice.
turn to come back. Yeah.
So our attempt here is to tag others and to empower them to their own power. But I think I think you can hear it in Jason's voice and in his presentation of who he is, and in the first video that we did and this one, that you have a huge heart, and that your objective in life is to empower others. And in that process, I feel like that, you've said this, and that your greatest joy is seeing others waking up to their own potential, and that is something that I agree with you on, and to me it's something, a joy to observe in others.
Thank you. And I think your virtues bring out mine, and so it's always an honor and a blessing to speak with you, and to share in this journey that we've chosen for ourselves.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
You're welcome. Thank you.
My honor. Okay, well, I'm grateful for everyone who finds interest in Beyond Normal Boundaries. And this is Scott Hobgood with Beyond Normal Boundaries, wishing to play a part in your self-empowerment of experiencing your ultimate dreams.